Hey guys, so in this video, I'm going to share with you guys how I got $100,000 completely tax-free. So do me one huge favor, right down beneath this video, find that thumbs up button, give that thumbs up button a quick tap for me. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into today's video. Alright you guys, so before we could even start talking about or discussing how I got this $100,000 completely tax-free, we first have to address, this issue of how did I even get $100,000 to begin with? Like, where did this $100,000 come from? So it all goes back to the year 2016 when here in the city of Moreno Valley where I live, I came across the opportunity to invest into a single family home and purchase that single family home for $199,000. And that's exactly what I did. I submitted my offer. My offer was accepted. I purchased that single family home. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom. And after I purchased it, I decided, hey, I'm not gonna live in this property. That's not the reason why I bought it. I bought this property solely for the purpose of making money. So what did I do? I went ahead and renovated the property. It just needed very light renovations. It just needed, some fresh paint. It just needed, some new flooring. And pretty much after that, and I just, had the yard landscaped a little bit. And after that, it was pretty much good to go and ready to put a tenant in. And that's exactly what I did. I placed a tenant into that property. And then to be honest with you, I was not really making any profit from the rent, from the rental income on a month-to-month basis. But I knew over the years, the rental rates would rise and then I could maybe, make a little money in rents, but my ultimate goal was to make money with the property appreciating over the years to come. So I did exactly that. I just continued to just rent out, this rental property over the next few years, all along the while paying attention to the property's value, over the period of years. And as I was doing that and paying attention to the property's value over the, last following years, I saw that, gradually the property was increasing in value. And this was very exciting because I'm seeing the investment pay off, especially because I'm not really winning on a month-to-month basis. Like I said, I was basically breaking even as far as the monthly rental income, right? But it's cool, every so often to just watch the property's value go up, by thousands of dollars, right? And then so we fast forward to the year 2022 around January, and then I went ahead and really looked at this property and was like, I know it has gone up significantly from when I first bought this property, right? And then you factor in not only has it appreciated in value, but because the tenant is paying the rent and paying the mortgage, the value that I owe on the loan is also going down. So you have the pay down, on the loan plus the appreciation. So there was a fair decent amount of equity by the time that I finally, looked at what's the true value, what type of equity is built up into this real estate, piece of property that I own. And so when I had the property, evaluated to see its worth, it was estimated that it was at $400,000. And I was like, hey, there's a really good amount of equity. Basically the property has doubled. It's gone from $200,000, my initial loan amount, all the way up to $400,000. And then at this point when I'm looking at doing, some type of move to be able to access some of the money that's here, I only owed 170,000 or 168,000, right? Somewhere in that range. And so at this point, I'm okay, I owe the bank 168,000, 169, somewhere between 168, 170,000. Roughly, we'll just call it 170,000. So I owe the bank 170 on this piece of property, but it's worth 400. And I'm like, okay, so what do I do, with all this other value that this property holds? Do I sell it and then pay the taxes and so on and so forth and go that route? But then I'm like, yeah, that's great. I clear all this money, after I pay the taxes and real estate, agent fees and so on and so forth, but now I don't have the property, so I get the cash, but now I lose the asset. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really like the idea of that. So what I started thinking about is what's a better option? How can I still keep my property and then also still get maybe not as much money, but still a decent amount of money? So that's when I went ahead and decided to make my next move. Alright you guys, so it's at this very point that I went ahead and decided the very best option for me to go ahead and do with this rental property at this time that I have all this large amount of equity in it was going to be for me to go ahead and decide to do a cash out refinance on this property, because in doing a cash out refinance, it was going to allow me to access not all of the equity that I had within the property, but it was still going to allow me to, access a fair amount of the equity without selling my property. And so for those of you guys that are not familiar what a cash out refinance is, basically what happens is like you have a property, you have like a loan that you originally, borrowed the dollar amount that you borrowed on that property. So the bank was going to say, okay, so you want to now access like, the like current value that's in your, that your property's worth. You want to access some of the equity in there. You want to borrow some of that money because that's what it ends up being. It ends up being a loan. So they're going to say, okay, like in my example, they're going to say, okay, well, you owe 170,000. You want to borrow an additional $100,000, right, on top of that. So they're going to say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to pay off the 170 that you owe, and then we're going to also tack on that other 100 grand because that's, you have that much equity and more, because they're not going to let you borrow all the equity that you have in your home or your property. But what they're going to say is, okay, we will let you, access a certain portion of it, a certain percentage, and then beyond that, they won't let you access it, right? So because they want you to still keep a certain amount of equity within the property, because other than that, they see it as too risky, especially if it's going to be like, not your primary residence and it's like a rental property, and which in this case it was, right? So then they're going to say, okay, so we're going to pay off your old loan, then we're going to give you the new loan, and it's going to include the equity that we're going to give you, like that 100K, and then we're also going to, add on that original loan, and we're going to put it together and create a new loan, and that's going to be the new total loan amount that you're going to borrow. And that is basically like the quick, basically summed up version of what like a cash out refinance is. So I hope that helps out, and if it doesn't, and I didn't do a really great job, just search, search online, read up about a cash out refinance. Maybe they have like a better way of explaining it to you guys, but that's like the best simple way that I know how to kind of explain it to you guys. So I went ahead and did the cash out refinance, and when I did it, what they ended up telling me, like my goal when I was doing the cash out refinance was like, hey, look, I want to pull out and I'm hoping to clear $100,000 for myself, right? And so what they ended up telling me is like, hey, look, yes, like your property is worth, 400,000, but we're only gonna like let you get $106,000, like, of your equity, through the cash out refinance. Like we will give you $100,000, but this is not factoring in like the fees or like, any of the other expenses associated with the process of like going through the cash out refinance, right? So when it was all said and done, and I went ahead and decided to go ahead and go through with the cash out refinance, and after all the like fees associated with it and all the going through the whole entire process, when it was all said and done, like I ended up clearing, like, so they gave me the 106, then subtract all the fees and like expenses with it, and when it was all said and done, I got $86,000, right? So whatever the difference was, that's basically what it cost me to go through the process of doing the cash out refinance. So in my mind, I'm like, hey, that's great, like, and yes, like this is why I titled getting a $100,000 tax free, because now this is the part like you guys are wondering, like, how does it become tax free? So the reason why I say that it's tax free, because it is like, I didn't pay any taxes. Yes, like there was fees and like expenses for me to do the cash out refinance process, like, to go through that whole situation, access the funds, get paid the 86,000 to me, them take the difference, from the 106, all of that. Yes, like I had to pay those fees, but there was no taxes. Like they never taxed that income, because it's not considered income. It's considered, or rather, I should say, they didn't tax that money because it's not considered income. It's just considered a loan, because that's exactly what I did. I borrowed $106,000 of the value of that rental property that I owned. And so because it's a loan, loans are not, they don't tax loans. So that's like that's like the loophole, that's the benefit of doing like a cash out refinance. So had I sold my property, I would have to pay taxes, I'd have to pay the real estate agent fees, all this other stuff, right? So that's why I said I went ahead and went with the decision to go ahead and do the cash out refinance, because in doing so, I'm able to borrow that 106,000. Yeah, I got to pay a little bit of fees, let them take their money for doing the process, but when it's all said and done, I pocket $86,000 into my bank account with no taxes, and then it's like, bam, I got that all because I had this rental property, and that's the benefit. Like I still own my property. Now, something that obviously like I need to mention in this video is that in doing so, the loan amount goes up, right? Because now I don't owe 170, I owe like 270 or 276, right? So the total amount that the total dollar amount on my loan goes up, and because of this, the monthly payment goes up, right? So as long as I'm able to continue to rent out my rental property for an amount that's going to cover my new mortgage payment, then I'm fine. And that's exactly what I was able to do, because like I said in the beginning of the video, I knew that over the years the rental rates would go up over time, and that's exactly what happened. So all I did was just adjust the monthly rent, to what the current market was at the time. And when I did so, I didn't have to like raise it like dramatically. I just barely raised it little by little. But what it did mean, because over the period of years, like my tenants were changing and the rates gradually went higher and higher, with each tenant that moved in. And then what it ultimately ended up happening is, it's not that I charged like the new tenant like some crazy higher rent to just account for me getting this money. What it meant is that I was no longer making as much money on a month-to-month basis now, because I took on a new loan for a higher payment. So because my payment went higher, I'm not clearing as much month-to-month profit, but I was able to access, a rather sizable amount of money, $86,000. I don't know, to some of you guys that's probably a very little amount of money. To some of you guys, that's probably a lot of money. You guys can let me know down in the comment section below. But this is how I was able to go ahead and get $100,000 tax-free. And the reason why I say it's $100,000 and not the $86,000 that I actually got deposited is because the whole total amount that I did borrow was $106,000. That's why I say it like that. And I didn't pay any taxes on that $106K. It was just the fees associated with doing the cash out refinance. So I hope that you guys found this video helpful, and if you guys did, you guys can find this red subscribe button right here on the bottom right side of your screen. Tap that red subscribe button so that way you can get notified each and every time I upload a video. And thank you guys so much for watching, and if you'd like to watch another video from me, click this video here on the screen, and I'll catch you guys in that next video.